ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुसाक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So class is over. So do you all agree? So generally we start with the class Om Sahana Bhavatu Shanti Mantra and we complete with Purnavadaha Purnavidam. So I did it. Now for us time to leave. But why not? Because for this Upanishad, Shanti Mantra happens to be Purnavadaha Purnavidam. So we'll be chanting every day in the beginning Purnavadaha Purnavidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. Now, as all of you know, Veda mainly content-wise divided into two parts, Purva Bhaga and Uttara Bhaga, what is technically called as Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. And when you look at also this Rik, Yaju, Sama and Atharvana, interestingly, this Yajurveda divided into two parts. So one is Shukla Yajurveda, don't translate as white, okay? And Krishna Yajurveda, black. So this is called AI problem, okay? So earlier it was so-called scholar problem. So now scholars are escaped. So we can say AI problem. So one is Shukla Yajurveda, other one is Krishna Yajurveda. And interestingly, if we look at each Veda is being followed by a group of people traditionally and strictly with the lineage. So what we technically call as Shakha, especially when you do Abhivadanam, those who do, those who know, Abhivadanam is nothing, announcing who you are. So we don't announce, nowadays also you announce. What you announce? Which club you belong to. Okay? So you nowadays announce which club you belong to. Also you announce that what you have studied, what you have not studied, where your address. But here we do Abhivadanam little differently, where one has to announce very carefully and clearly that the person belongs to which Veda, which Shakha, which Guhya Sutra in details, so that the other person understands how to address. Because, please understand, when you look at here, especially Yajurveda and that to Shukla Yajurveda, because this Upanishad happens to be part of Shukla Yajurveda. And interestingly, in Shukla Yajurveda, this Upanishad being Antabhaga or Uttarabhaga, now it has or it is presented in both the Shakha. So one is called Kanwa Shakha, other one is called Madhyandina Shakha. That's why I had to bring these 2 points. So these 2 Shakhas branches do follow with small differences. Generally, in South India, Kanwa Shakha is being followed. Generally, in North India, Madhyandina Shakha is being followed. In short. And of course, there are certain differences, like Kanwa Shakha has got its Shuras, whereas Madhyandina Shakha doesn't have Shura. And especially in this Upanishad, there are small differences here and there, are there in both the Shakhas. But not much. However, we will be following Kanwa Shakha. So you should not have any confusion that which branch of Shukla Yajurveda you are following here and this Upanishad. Now, when you start looking at any Veda, especially Karma Kanda, is full of karma. So karma also gives what? Karma phalam. It has to give result. And every karma phalam also has its dosham. So you can say limitations or you can say defects. Both are one and same. You can take it. Limitations, that itself is called defect. We look at those defects in various ways. So we can say mainly when we look at especially that any karma is the cause of bandhanam, bandhakatvam. So any karma is the cause of my bondage. We do karma to free ourselves. But the main defect of karma is to bind myself through the attachment. So that means any amount of karma will never allow a person to become free. And second limitations would be, we say tuchhatvam. So when you say tuchhatvam, please understand that karma definitely is always brings not only that limitation or bondage, also limited in nature. So what I was looking for, I will never achieve through any sort of karma. Yes, I will have some momentarily pleasure, I will get carried away, I will dance, I will jump, both way, okay? But at the end of the day, it will not have any value. In fact, if you understand this, then only you can come for Vedanta. So till we understand that every karma has its second effect is called tuchhatvam. It is a tuchham iti. So one is bandhana karanam, bandhakatvam, tuchhatvam. Second one. And not only that, third one is also more painful because it causes or it gives pain. Dukhatvam. So definitely it only gives me pain, nothing else. So when I understand these three limitations of karma, I will not have any other choice than coming for what? Coming for Uttarabhaga, Antavhaga called Vedanta Upanishad. And we have discussed especially in Kathopanishad. What is the Upanishad meaning? I am not going to talk here either. But generally, traditionally, we take 10 Upanishad. So it goes like this. Isha Kena Katha Prashna, Mundaka Mandukya Titiri, Aitiryam Cha Chandogyam, Bruhadaranyakam Tatha. These are the 10 Upanishads we consider as not only major Upanishad, also important for any spiritual sadhaka. Especially if a sadhaka wants to study Brahma Sutra. Because in Brahma Sutra, these 10 Upanishads have been taken by Vyasacharya in different contexts. So unless the person has studied these 10 Upanishads, it will be difficult for a sadhaka to understand Brahma Sutra. So if we look at in this order, Isha Kena Katha Prashna. So we are supposed to start with Ishavasya, Isha Upanishad. Okay? But we are starting little late because we started first Katha. Because Katha Upanishad is easier for everybody to understand because there is story, so person comes, slowly understands, lot of things comes. But here interestingly, when we look at this Ishavasya Upanishad, it has two meanings or two ways it is being called as. So actually it is supposed to be called as Ishavasya Upanishad, Ishavasya Upanishad. But in short, people call also as Isha Upanishad, Isha Upanishad. Both are one and same, don't get confused. So there is Ishavasya. Why it is Ishavasya? Because the word, the Upanishad starts with Om Ishavasya Idagum Sarvam. So because it starts with Ishavasyam Idagum Sarvam, so now what they do? So now very nicely, conveniently, so they have taken Ishavasya, like Kena Upanishad, Kena. So each has Katha Upanishad, don't say started with Katha, okay? It is Kathaka, okay? Rishi, there. So each one has got its own point. Now here, when we look at this Ishavasya Upanishad, or you can say Isha Upanishad, we can look at this Upanishad from different angle. First of all, only 18 verses. Very short and sweet. But it communicates everything. Because in these 18 verses, first two verses are most important verses. And not that others are not important, okay? Because these first two verses very clearly highlights that Ishvara Drushti is my purpose of spiritual life. Again, I am repeating. The verses that highlights that Ishvara Drishti alone is my purpose of life or spiritual life. Then you may ask the question, what do you mean by this Ishvara Drishti? Generally, there are two types of Drishti, as there are two things exist for a common person. So one is Ishvaraha, other one is called Jagat, or technically we call as Prapancha. Now interestingly, Prapancha is always different from Ishvara. And whenever I look at Prapancha, Prapancha means entire universe, okay? So this Prapancha, when I look at Prapancha, what is Prapancha Drushti? There are divisions. There is duality. So one is called Prapancha Drushti, the vision of duality. So you are different from me. Forget you are different from me. Ishvara itself is different from me. In fact, how can I remember last time when I was talking in Italy in this religious, conclave, when I was saying, look, to understand that I am different from God, I don't have to go to any religious people because I know. In fact, after talking so much, each one of them came forward, that is called intolerantly. No. Our religion does not approve this. How can we be different? How can we be the God? God is different, I am different. So there we call as Prapancha Drushti. And we say, Dvaite Bhayam Astiti. Wherever there is duality, wherever one creates division, there is fear. So fear is not imported from outside world, but in fact it is exported from me to the outside world. Now when Dvaite Bhayamasti, so as long as I have Dvaita Drushti, the vision of duality, vision of this world, that long, what happens? I am in the samsara. And that is not my purpose of life either. So there we say very carefully, what one need to do, change that Prapancha Drushti to Ishvara Drushti. So when we say Prapancha Drushti to Ishvara Drushti, so what is Ishvara Drushti? Also we need to understand. So what do you mean by this Ishvara Drushti? We say very carefully, in fact the first verse, second verse we'll be seeing in details, that Ishvaraha is not different from Prapancha. Or you can say Prapancha is not different from Ishvara. And that one has to understand. So we give this example. In fact, second and third verse we'll talk very carefully. Like the ocean and wave. The ocean is water, waves also water. Now, if we look at that, there is no division between ocean and wave. In fact, both are indeed water. But now, next question we say, hey, look, waves are born from ocean. Waves have come out of ocean. Not only that, is being sustained, again also merges back. So also this universe is originated, again going to be sustained, going to go back. Remember, when I'm talking all these things, I'm talking in keeping with Purnamadaha Purnamidam, okay? So that I'll complete in one stretch Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. Two are together. So then, how to address this point? Yes, from water standpoint, there is no difference. Both are one and same. But when we look at wave as a name and has its own form, there what happens? We can say wave is born, is being sustained, again it emerges back. In fact, there is nothing called wave except a name and form. In reality, wave does not exist. It is indeed water. This is called wave buddhi, this is called water buddhi. Can you see the difference? So when you have water buddhi, you will not have any fear with reference to bigger waves or smaller waves. Whereas when you have wave buddhi, you will be always jealous. There will be always inferiority or superiority complex in you. Always there will be competition, what to do, what not to do. So also Ishvaraha. Now that is what is being said in this Shanti mantra. Om Purnamadaha. Om is nothing. We have seen in details. The shortest form of Ishvaraha. If you want to explain Ishvaraha, the totality, in the shortest way, without any misunderstanding, adding any confusion to it, or branding any religion, that is called Om. Even though people try to amen this and that, try to say, just to copy this. So this Om, Now this Om, the God, the Lord, the Ishvaraha, Purnamadaha. So Ada means that is Purna. Purna means, okay, WHOLE, whole. Because I remember Puja Swamiji used to make this fun, okay? So that is whole. Idam, this is whole. Idam Purnaha iti. And Purnat Purnamudachyate. So from the whole, this whole has come. Then Purnasya Purnamadaya. So if you remove from the whole, this whole, still the Purnam remains. The whole remains. So what is that whole remains? In your head, HOLE whole remains. You understand? So from W goes away somewhere. So from W it becomes HOLE, only whole remains. And sometimes, if you try to look at this particular Shanti mantra without supporting commentary or without the Acharya's help, it is a disaster. What you understand? So you understand not WHOLE whole, HOLE whole, okay? Full of holes. Maybe because of that reason, people are called as holy. However, here we need to see very carefully through this Upanishad, that stands for the totality is nothing but Purnam iti. So when it is Purnam, and interestingly, this Prapancha is also Purnam. So when this Prapancha or me is Purnam, and the Ishvaraha is Purnam, so definitely whatever I say, Purnat Purnam Udachyate, from the totality, this Purnam has come. How it comes? Like wave has come from ocean. So in reality, it has not come. But for our transaction, we do say this. And while coming, ocean does not loses its status. Why we bring this point very carefully? Because whatever creates something will lose its own nature. Here, there is nothing to losing either. And of course, from this Purnaha, when we try to Adaya, so Adaya means understanding Purna or separate also. So when you try to separate, please, Purnam from Purnasya, again what happens? Purnam eva avashishyate. So that means when you divide or you take away this Namarupa, again what happens? Namarupa means name and form. Then what remains? In reality, remains Purnam, the Ishvara iti. And that is what called Ishvara Buddhi. So this Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate highlights nothing but only Ishvara Buddhi. So anything and everything that I see is nothing but Ishvara iti. With this background, we will get into the text from tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.